encouraging. The young man took a tough incident. He's back. I'm so happy that he's back, man, because that's his place of peace. He can get back to doing what he wanted to do.
Yeah, I think the entire NFL world was relieved, to say the least, to see him back at work yesterday. In the meantime, we turn our attention to Week 5. We're a quarter of the way into the season. There have been some disappointing teams so far this year. Bart, I'll go right back to you. What's been the biggest disappointment in the sport so far to you?
Yeah, Greeny, when you go out to Denver, if you've never been there before, you look on the back of the microwave packages, things take longer to cook. And right now, Russell Wilson ain't cooking. I don't know if it's a change of scenery, altitude, but it doesn't look pretty. We thought this was going to be a team that was going to vie for the division and also be a Super Bowl contender. They're nothing close to that.
Dan Graziano, to this point in the season, who's been the biggest disappointment?
I'm going to say the Indianapolis Colts. I don't think they have an altitude-related excuse, but they were supposed to be the favorites in their division. So far, they've played each of the other teams in their division. They haven't beaten any of them. They did manage to beat the Chiefs somehow, but 1-2-1 for a team that had Super Bowl, AFC Championship, Super Bowl aspirations. They have not looked good, turning the ball over too much. They need to get things on track.
Those both make sense to me. Tannenbaum, who's been the biggest disappointment to you so far this year?
Similar to my guy Bart, the Denver Broncos. The Broncos on offense screening are 32nd in the NFL red zone. They're 23rd on third down. And the only reason they have 2 wins is because of their defense. So their head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, has a long way to go. That's impacting Russell Wilson. But this offense looks really poor, especially compared to what our expectations were.
Well, isn't that interesting? The Broncos and Colts actually play each other tonight, and we'll talk about that game in a minute. But just to sort of add on to the early struggles of Russell Wilson, when we had Rex Ryan in here on Monday, he made this observation about the team that Whistle plays for now and the team that he played for before. Listen.
Geno Smith is playing better than Russell Wilson. And I tell you what.
Say that.
Yes, he is.
So Dan may have yelled, "Don't say that," but Dan also tweeted while watching the Broncos, just as he's getting ready for the game, doing practice film. He said the Broncos offense is absolutely maddening to watch. So let's talk about it. Let's expand on that thought. And Mike T, I know that you were telling us before the season that you had one major concern about the Broncos. It was less about Russell Wilson than it was about someone else. And maybe that someone else has actually been the biggest problem.
Nathaniel Hackett has never been a play caller in the NFL. There are massive growing pains when you're the head coach, the play caller, and trying to manage the game. And we saw that. Now, to his credit, they hired Jerry Rosburg to help with that. But when you look at the job that guys like Mike McDaniel, Kevin O'Connell, Brian Daboll have done, they were clearly ready for their opportunities. Nathaniel Hackett clearly wasn't. So he's trying to learn on the fly, Greeny. That's a really hard job to do that. And just not even the decisions, the way it looks, getting out of the huddle, the cadence, getting up to the line of scrimmage, trying to run motions. Every ball is being snapped at 0-1 second on the play clock. It's really hard to be excellent when the whole operation just isn't functioning well.
Well, that's exactly right, Bart. That's the observation that even the person who doesn't know the X's and O's the way you do, they just don't look like they're as ready to play on offense as everyone else is. How much of that is on the coach and how much of that is on the quarterback?
To me, 100% of that is on the coach. And when you said Jerry Rosburg, I had to remember and go in my head and say, that's my old special team coach from Baltimore.
Yeah.
I mean, they brought him in to, listen, he should have been a head coach in this league. But listen, that just is a admission of just how lost Nathaniel Hackett is. And if you haven't never made those calls, you don't understand how quickly they need to come in, how quickly you need to get the personnel, all the things that goes on, the operation of it. And then listen, now the Broncos are behind. This was a team that, quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, like Deshaun Watson, was salivating on being able to get opportunity to work with some of this talent. And to make matters worse, now Javonte Williams is out. Now you got Mr. Fumbleitis himself, Melvin Gordon, who could present extra opportunities for the opposing team, which is going to make it even harder on Russell Wilson.
So again, it's two desperate teams playing tonight. Certainly the Colts, I think, would qualify as desperate. And even in that AFC West, the Broncos should be in some level of desperation mode. Bart, I do need to go back to the quarterback, though, because I get it. And I see the same thing that you guys see, and I certainly see the growing pains of the coach. Mm-hmm. But Russell Wilson is there. One of the reasons he's getting paid all that money is to overcome at least some of that, and it doesn't look obvious that he is doing that.
And I mean, he has the talent. And the crazy thing is he wants to be put in the same breath as an elite quarterback. That's why he left, because, it was in a run-based offense. But maybe Pete Carroll knew something that we didn't know. Like maybe we knew that he wasn't capable of doing these things, that he isn't Aaron Rodgers, that he isn't Tom Brady, even though he got the deal and we thought that he would have the power, because we know those quarterbacks would start implementing some of the things that he did well in Seattle and try and start there. They have to have an identity. I don't know what this identity of this offense is supposed to be. And if you don't have an identity, you're lost trying to be a copycat of somebody else.
Dan, what is the sense you're getting? There's been so much talk early this year about them, and you just pointed out, I don't know if this is sneaky big news, because it's not sneaky. Losing Javonte Williams, who has been their best offensive player, he's got a torn ACL, he's out for the season. It's a devastating blow for them. What are you hearing about the Russell of it all?
It is a devastating blow because I think they felt like they could lean on the run game while the passing game got, put itself together, whether that's Hackett needing to be sharper, whether that's Russell needing to be sharper, whether it's all about timing with the receivers, and these things take time. You felt like you had a deep group of running backs that you could count on. Now one is injured, and the other one, as Bart mentioned, keeps fumbling. So they can't really rely on that in the short term while they get everything put together. And I think when you trade for Russell Wilson and you sign him to a high-end quarterback contract, you expect you're getting someone who will elevate the group around him, right? And so far, he hasn't done that. Whoever's fault that is, that has not happened so far. It's early in the season. It's only 4 games. Things should get better. But what Tannenbaum said puts it perfectly. The entire operation looks like a mess right now.
And so, Mike, to sort of put a ribbon on this part of the conversation, 4 games is far too quickly to make the determination that we felt would be ultimately made of Russell Wilson in Denver. His second act is going to be a referendum on whether he has merely been a good quarterback or whether he is truly an historically great quarterback. From what you've seen so far, has your perspective on it changed?
Yeah, a little bit. He's definitely more middle of the pack. And then compound it with you're going against Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, and a really good quarterback in Derek Carr. The bar is so high in that division, Greeny. And as the guys mentioned, without Javonte Williams, I think it gets harder for them. And I clearly see them as the 4th best team in this division.
Okay, so that feels like trouble. That said, if they win tonight against a struggling Colts team, and we just talked about how disappointing they have been, they'll be sitting at 3-2. So far worse things can happen. Let's put the picks up and see who everybody likes tonight. The Colts on the road. They had the tie against the Texans. They somehow beat Kansas City. Graziano.
By myself again.
You've got the Colts on the road. Why do you like Indy and Matt Ryan tonight in Denver?
I just think that they have to be better than they've been. I think that the
No
Frank
Darius
Reich's,
Leonard, though.
Frank Reich's seat's getting a little toasty,
Yeah.
I think, a little bit. I think it's probably pretty tense there. Short week, everybody's banged up. Even Russell Wilson was on the injury report this week with a shoulder thing. So, yes, no Jonathan Taylor, no Darius Leonard. I recognize that this is a bold pick, but I think the Colts need this, and I think they'll get it together.
It was actually your bold prediction to start the show. I just realized. How about the Colts? Give me a quick minute on the Colts here. We see everyone else likes Denver tonight, the Thursday night. They're at home.
Yeah.
And again, as bad as they've been, the Colts have been worse. Why has it been so disappointing for Indy, for a team, as we said, had Super Bowl expectations?
I think we overestimated the value in this offensive line. We thought they were a lot better. Now we realize that the left tackle position is a position of need, but also Matty Ice, still being a statue. We thought that Matty Ice being able to get the ball out of his hands, how accurate. We heard Frank Reich talk about how accurate he was, but he's been accurate to the other team. So you have to talk about he's starting to see the rush. And where stable pocket quarterback starts seeing the rush and not looking down the field, it's the beginning of the end. And it could be the beginning of the end for Matty Ice.
Most expensive offensive line in the league, and they don't have a left tackle.
Yep.
Something went wrong there.
When you have a franchise quarterback who retires suddenly and young, as Andrew Luck did, it sets a franchise. They've never caught up. They've been trying to catch up to the Andrew Luck thing for years. They've tried a million different things. Every one of them